Hey, Andrew here in San Diego, United States of America, on my first trip to the US, and I've come here with three other very senior colleagues from our Central Adelaide Local Health Network, and we visited to do some hospital visits and attend a course on promoting professionalism within the hospital type and health organisations, and also to visit one or two sites that have electronic medical health record, as we in Callan are about to, or halfway through the process of rolling out our own electronic medical record that's already in place in a number of hospitals, such as Queen Elizabeth Hospital. I wanted to share a few just general impressions I've got from my time, both in terms of hospital visits and the course that we've attended and the people we've talked to. The three kind of themes, I suppose, are hospital culture, physician privilege, and also professional hospitality. So hospital culture is very different here compared to back home. So already there's some differences in terms of doctors. So over here, all doctors are called physicians, whilst back in Australia, only those that are pursuing a medical specialist pathway are known as physicians. But over here, they're all called physicians. They all have postgraduate medical schools, whilst back home we have a mixture. And then in terms of names as well, like we have intern, resident, registrar, fellow, consultant, and a few other kind of more specific titles. But here it seems as though everyone who's a training doctor is just called a resident. And then when they finish, then they're like a physician or a specialist at that point. Their training in general also seems to be a bit shorter. So they were surprised to hear that I'm in my 6th year and I've still got, 3 years more to train, which admittedly I'm a little bit unusual, but there's plenty of my peers that are not as far through training as I am. So that was a little bit different. Interesting to see that there's much kind of younger specialists in the system here. And of course, there's a really big difference in terms of hospital culture because it's a privately driven, insurance-driven model. And so there's a lot of extra things that doctors here need to check off and document that are mandatory by law and regulations, or in order for them to gain the money from the insurance bodies. And interestingly, I've learned as well that there are different values of insurance. So some insurance will cover some things that others don't. Some insurance will pay more to a physician than another insurance. So even with some doctors, they're actually trying to attract a certain subgroup of patients that have that kind of premium insurance so that they can get premium money for what they do. So it's a very activity driven model because the activity is reimbursed specifically. So really different there. Doctors have a very kind of high position, more so I think than in the Australian system. The residents are not paid as well and probably don't have as good working conditions. But there's certain things, that in the hospital you have car parks that are reserved, or actually a separate car park for physicians. So in one of the hospitals we saw, there was a staff car park, and then next to the staff park there was a physician-only car park. And then another hospital we went to, they have a staff car park for everyone, but there's sections that are physician-only car parks. So that's interesting. There's physician-only lounges, and in most of those lounges, which is usually open to the residents as well, they get free hot meals cooked for them, and that's just kind of standard. The other culture thing is that they wear these kind of white coats signifying that they're a doctor, and all of their qualifications are MD. So it's very much like, I'm John Smith, MD. That MD thing is really emphasized. They don't go on a first name basis at all. And that was interesting to see. Even senior nurses that have worked with a certain doctor for a long period of time still refer to them as Dr. Smith. And they were quite surprised to hear that in the Australian system, we're increasingly moving to a model where many doctors are referred to on a first name basis, and that's certainly how I prefer to practice. So really interesting exploring those kind of hospital culture models and visiting hospitals that, a bit like our private hospitals, don't have any training doctors, and they don't necessarily have doctors overnight, even in their intensive care units, because the nurses often have maybe a high level of training and autonomy and expectation of what they're going to do, and a lot more stuff is done remotely, even more with the electronic medical record that's now pretty prevalent across America. So that was really interesting. There's that physician privilege side of having that position that's very high, and they really are running the hospital and making all the big decisions, probably more than back home in Australia. And yeah, once you're fully trained, you really have a lot of power to do things and choose where you work and the like. So There's some different challenges that therefore people running hospitals and trying to lead and manage doctors have that we won't necessarily have at home, but also other incentives and resourcing that may be richer than what we have back home. The last thing was about professional hospitality. We have just been so richly and warmly welcomed in the places that we've gone to. So at the first hospital, we just had a half day, and one of the specialists was with us for that half day. We had people from Allscripts who have designed EPAS or Sunrise. One flew in from Canada, who's the vice president, and another one flew in from Texas, who's one of the key players, to spend that half day with us because we were just visiting to learn how they did things, and several key members of their IT department that run the EMR. And they gave us lunch, and they arranged for a private driver to pick us up, bring us to there, and then take us back again afterwards. And it was just so richly welcomed there, which was really lovely. And then the next hospital we visited, we got there ourselves, but their executive had taken out just 2 hours to sit down with us. We're not bringing them anything in particular, but just the humility they had of going, no, we want to share openly what we've learnt and the lessons that have really worked for us, and they're actively looking not just in the United States but overseas to gain experience and go, what are people working on, what's working, and how can we kind of bring that back and make our organisation better just as others are. Not just assuming, we've got it, it's working well, let's keep doing it, but actually actively looking to keep getting better from other people. It's just been wonderful. But they had the 2 hours with us, they showed us some great stuff. They provided food for us. We felt just so welcome, and that they would take time out of their busy schedules to share with us their experience was so special. And then we got given a tour by another person and visited intensive care and another ward. And then they said, where are you going? Oh, we'll just organise some transport for you. So then they just organised transport for us in a private car again to wherever we needed to go. It's just like next level kind of hospitality, and that's really inspired me, but also our team in general, to think in Australia we probably don't do that as well, and we should, and that's a really good thing to be doing, to make our guests who are coming for business or organisational level feel so welcome, and to really that we have those professional networks and we can really support them. So there's been a few things that I've just learned through that side of things. Even being at the course this last weekend has been just really inspirational, hearing about this model of professionalism and how we promote that, how we maintain it. And I'm the only resident, as they would call here, that was present. I was amongst medical directors, CEOs, lawyers, and specialists. Really, that was most of the people, and there was about 50, 60 of them there in the room. So I just felt so privileged to have this opportunity to network and get their different ideas and experiences and perspectives. So I've really taken a lot, and look forward to kind of sharing more of that as I come back.